Hey everybody, it's Uncle Phil. And I didn't give you a good shot of the Alps yesterday, but I thought you deserved that today. And look at that, look at that. Music. The moon on the, what's the line? The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below. Anyhow, guys, it's a beautiful place, but it's cold. -12 Celsius for the low, -5 Celsius is the high. Okay, I was born in Oklahoma, 3 hours north of Dallas. By the time I was 5, I moved to Dallas. Stayed in Dallas until I was 51. With the exception of 18 months, I lived in Seattle. So most of my life, like 50 years, spent in hot climates. I'm really trying to get used to this, and I'm not complaining because I love it, but I am ill-equipped. Let's just put it like that. I don't have the right clothing. I mean, I'm built like a polar bear, so, my midsection stays warm just from, the insulation I bring with me that God gave me, God and beer and pizza. But anyhow, it is cold here. My car doesn't want to start. It's nuts. So Uncle Phil's trying to figure out how to live in very cold climates. If you got any tips, let me know how to keep my feet warm, especially. And it's hard because I know you're going to say order good boots or something. I'm a size 16 wide. Size 16 wide. Like I have giant Sasquatch feet, so finding shoes is tricky. But anyhow, yeah, beautiful, beautiful place. Beautiful Wonderland that I live in. Not bad, huh? All right, I'll check in later. Bye. Hey everybody, it's Uncle Phil. Back at you for another edition of Uncle Phil's playlist. I can't forget, I know exactly what I want to do today for the next item on the playlist. But I know that this is not good lighting and sound and everything else. Again, I'm working with what I got right now. I'm in a temporary housing. I have no internet, so I'm just using data on my phone. Actually, it's I've got my. I know my face is not lit properly. See, there's a terrible light over me. I've actually got my iPad just shining a white piece of paper from like a writing program. And I know it doesn't do much, but if I turn it off, look at that. Look at that. It really does do something. Look at me figuring out hacks. This is why I don't give advice on how to shoot videos, because I don't know what I'm doing and I'm just making shit up. But anyhow, Uncle Phil wanted to say hello again today. I'm trying to make more of a habit, and I'll probably splice in at the beginning the little 1 minute thing I did outside to show you the Alps. Hopefully you've seen that at this point. Beautiful place. Trying to figure out how to survive the cold, man. Again, I like it. I like it. I've always hated the heat, so I'm really glad to have the welcome change to the cold. But I am not. It's not that I'm not built for it physically. I'm just not prepared for it clothing wise. So and the big and tall world is not as good here. So we'll figure it out. I just may wrap myself in like insulation. I think I just may order some insulation and wrap myself like a weirdo. Anyhow, I was talking to my daughter yesterday. Had a really nice conversation with my daughter. We're a lot alike. Bless her heart. I'm sorry, honey. Sorry. She got most of her old man's psychoses. And it's worse for her because she's a woman. I grew up with only brothers. And my mom was not. She was like, she was a woman, and it wasn't that she wasn't feminine or anything. It was just she like for example, here's a good example. She just didn't wear makeup really. She'd put on some lipstick occasionally. No like eye makeup, no like base, like she did not wear makeup as we think of makeup, because that was just not who she was. So she was, she was a daddy's girl growing up, only child. She didn't have sisters. We didn't have any girls at the house other than her. And so I had a lot of blind spots when it came to the female of the species. And obviously my wife gave me quite an education, but nothing will educate you like children. That there's period, full stop. That one's true on a lot of levels. But yeah, my poor daughter. Yeah, I've begun to realize how hard it is for the ladies trying to navigate this world. It's not very friendly to you. You add to it, my daughter is 6 feet, maybe 6 feet one. Um, Beautiful. She gets constantly strangers are like, "Are you a model? You should model." Which that 100% comes from her mother, who's also tall and beautiful. But that, you think to yourself, "Oh, how nice to be tall and beautiful," but it's a liability because she gets ogled and looked at and catcalled and just treated like a piece of meat all the time. Bless her heart. Anyhow, I say all that to say I was talking to my daughter. Love talking to her. We had a great conversation. We're very alike. She has it worse than me. But we were talking about how like she was breaking down the world in terms of your identity and your thoughts and your actions. So, like, is there some core of who you are? And then there's all the things you think about who you are. And then there's the things you do, which may or may not correspond with those other two. This is an interesting way of looking at things, I think. And so we were having this philosophical conversation the way we do. And I told her, I said, I've noticed something because I've noticed that on some level, I've been a lot of people in my 53 and change years. There's been multiple Phil Bryans. And people who've known me at different times would probably look, and on some level, somebody who knew me in one environment at one time in history would go, "Oh, that feels like that. That's not the Phil I knew." You know what I mean? Like there would be different Phil Bryans. There would be different people that I have been, and not wildly different, like I'm being some sort of shapeshifter. Just that you take on different, you evolve. You take on different personality traits. You take on different behaviors. Context has a lot to do with it. Maturity, maybe. Just should I edit out the coughing? I'm sorry. Again, I've got COVID. I'm trying to get over it. Anyhow, maybe I'll just lower the volume on the coughing. But or maybe I'll just be lazy and not care, and you just have to endure the coughing. But anyhow, we were talking about this because I was like, she's only 21, and I'm like, this is one you, but trust me, there's more yous coming. But then on the other hand, I told her, I said, the other thing is, I said, I think a lot about you and your brother. She's a twin. She and her brother, they're our only kids. And I said, I can see you all at 21 and strengths and weaknesses of yours, challenges and abilities you have been there since our earliest days. Like before you could speak, there were personality traits you were exhibiting that I can still see today. And I thought of that for myself. And I guess that's that identity thing, this core of who you are, right? Like there's this little nugget of you. And it's true. My dad told me when I had kids, he told me, he said, man, they come out with their own personalities. They come out like, you may think you're going to print on that. And definitely, obviously, you have an influence on your children, but they're kind of the whole nature nurture. You probably can't beat nature. I don't think, man. And we, with twins at our house, they were living in the same nurture, right? Like they were getting the same house and the same parents, like whatever. Obviously, we didn't parent them each exactly the same way, but whatever our core values were, whatever our core principles were, whatever our behaviors were, they were getting all of that simultaneously. And trust me, they did not become the same people, and they never were. Anyhow, just thinking about this, really interesting to me, interesting to my daughter, maybe interesting to you, this idea of your core identity and then your thoughts about yourself, because that's what she struggles with, is doubt, self-doubt, and anxiety. And I get that too. I have it too. So then you have your thoughts, the voice in your head telling you stories, right? Telling you things. And sometimes here's what I've noticed about the voice in my head. I don't know about your head. You're like, Phil, if you have voices in your head, maybe you should see a professional or get on medications. And these are all great suggestions. But you know what I mean? The voice in your head. What I've noticed is the voice in your head, at least in my head, it's not always wrong, right? But it's never very nice. So even when it's right, it tends to be making me feel like shit, right? So like when I was not recording videos the last 6 months and I was telling myself it was only because I was really busy, which I was, as I explained yesterday. I was very, very busy, but I also could have had time to record some videos. You can always squeeze in a few minutes, especially if you're not bothering with it looking good or sounding good and you're just going to hit upload. And there was this little voice in my head that was like, you're just stalling. You're just stalling. You know you should be doing something and you're just stalling. And that was true, but that voice also was like, it's just because you always stall because you don't really want to follow through because you're scared. Again, none of which is untrue. The voice was correct. He was just kind of an asshole about it. So I don't know about your voice in the head, the thoughts, as my daughter would call them. But not always wrong. Definitely not always wrong, but never very nice. I don't find not particularly friendly. So you have your identity, you have the voice in your head, and then you have your actions, and that's what we were kind of talking about. Like, and there's been the whole fake it till you make it. Have you seen that TED Talk, the lady who had the bike accident, and there's definitely some truth to that, the fake it till you make it. But then there's also, I know there are times where I've done actions and stayed way too long in a scenario because I was like, oh, I can just fake it till I make it. And then years elapse and I realize I'm killing myself. Like I'm going to go to an early grave and have a heart attack because I've put myself somewhere that I shouldn't be. But I've told myself fake it till you make it. So that's a double-edged sword. Anyhow, all this, we were talking about this because she's 21. She's trying to figure out where to go in her life. And I'm 53 and I'm trying to figure out where to go in my life. And we're alike. And so we were talking about this. But it got me thinking, okay? It got me thinking about this idea of the personality you've had from the very beginning, right? This personality. And I was wondering if you can trace something that tells the story of your personality. And I thought of one of my earliest memories. I literally, so because I spent the first 5 years of my life in Oklahoma, any memories I have that are Oklahoma based are, I can kind of track the time because you don't really, they say about 3 years old is when you sort of start remembering things. You start holding on to those memories, that you can't go back a whole lot before 3. So I kind of have a very short window, 3 to 5, where I can sort of remember things. And there's this one thing that I never forgot this story. Like this story was always floating there, but it hit me about a year ago how important this story is for me. This just tells a lot. As my kids would say, this is my origin story of my villain arc. Maybe not my villain arc, but it is probably origin story material here. So like so many of my memories, it happened in church because my dad was a minister and it was the 1970s in the Bible Belt and we were at church all the time. And so, like every other kid, I was in Sunday school and, children's church all the time, getting indoctrinated. And I don't even mean that in a negative way, like getting indoctrinated. It sounds so like nefarious. We're all indoctrinating children. Everything we tell them is indoctrination. Just admit it. But anyhow, ours was very formalized because it was church. Again, it was evangelical, conservative, really bordering on fundamentalism. 1970s Bible Belt. So so we were getting trained up early, train up a child in the way they should go. And so I remember in Sunday school, they would teach us stories, and this is like preschool, so you can't read. So we're getting a lot of picture books, and we're getting flannel graph. If you've never seen flannel graph, this was the big thing we had in Sunday school. This is just a piece of cardboard with felt on it, a flannel, whatever. And there would be these pictures. You could buy these books of like cutouts, and on the cutouts it had a picture on one side of some story. So like there might be 3 pages about the story of Noah's Ark, and you'd pop these things out. They're perforated. You'd cut them out or pop them out, and on the back of the pictures, of these paper pictures, were strips of felt. And so the idea is, static electricity. You could put these things up and kind of have a display board, and you could tell the story, and you'd sort of tell it in stages. Anyhow, this was the big technology in the 1970s in Oklahoma. Flannel graph. So storybooks and flannel graph. And the thing was, at the end of every story time, they would usually have us pray. They'd say, okay, it's time to pray. And the thing they would say is okay, all right, everybody, time to pray. And they'd say, fold your hands, bow your heads, close your eyes, right? This is assume the position, right? Fold your hands, bow your head, close your eyes. This is what you do to pray. That's what we were told. And this was routine, right? We'd finish the story and they'd say, okay, little boys and girls, we're going to pray. This is usually before we were going to, go have a snack or go play. And I remember I would notice in the picture books and on the flannel graph, these stories about people praying, right? So whether it was, Moses calling out to God, Abraham calling out to God, Job calling out, inevitably, they were not folding their hands, closing their eyes, and bowing their heads. They were like, their arms were outstretched. They were usually looking up at heaven. Very often they were on their knees, I noticed. So they're like, and they're kind of, but their eyes are open. They seem to be, it's like they're talking up to the heavens, right? Reaching out. It's very visceral and aggressive. It's not this sort of locked down thing, right? And I just kept noticing this. So finally one day, right, we're finishing our little lesson and the teacher says, all right, boys and girls, it's time to pray. And I raised my hand with a question. Okay, I have a question. The teacher said, yes, Philip. And I said, so you always tell us to fold our hands and close our eyes and bow our heads, but in all the pictures of people praying in the Bible stories, they're not doing that. They're usually, their eyes are open and their hands are raised. So why do we have to close our eyes and bow our heads and fold our hands? This is the question I asked. I wasn't trying to be a troublemaker, I swear. And I asked this question. And here's the thing. I can remember, again, this is just burned into my memory. Looking back, she had no answer. She didn't know. She kind of waited a beat and she thought about it. Now, there's a lot of things she could have said right now, right? She could have said, well, I don't know the answer to that question, Phil. I'll ask the pastor. I'll look it up in a book. There's a number of things she could have said. She could have said, actually, I don't know, but I know that it keeps squirrely little kids like you from tickling the kid next to them during prayer time. So if nothing else, it's very practical to have your hands and your eyes and your head locked up, to have you locked up. Otherwise, we're pretty sure you're going to screw around. I wouldn't have liked that answer, but I would have understood that answer. That would have made sense to me. Oh, yeah, that's fair. I was tickling, Kevin earlier. She didn't say that. You know what she said? She looked at me and she paused a beat and she said, well, she said, well, that may be how they did it in the Bible times, but you are supposed to fold your hands, close your eyes, and bow your heads. That's what she said. And then, she caught some steam. She caught a little tailwind on that one. And then she went, besides, they're also kneeling. Do you want to have to kneel every time? Now, stop and think about this. Think about that transaction right there. This is golden stuff right here. So she says this, right? She says, first of all, that's how they did it in Bible times. I just love that phrase, in Bible times, because, that's just a few months, thousands of years. That's how they did it in Bible times. Okay, not a great answer. But you have to do it this way now. No reason given, just do as you're told. I'm not going to tell you why, but you better do as you're told. And then just cherry on top, a little like threat. And do you want to have to be on your knees? Do you want to have to kneel every time? Is that what you want? You want to have to kneel? So of course I complied, because at the end of the day, I'm actually kind of a rule follower, mainly probably because I'm just the fearful type. I'm like, if I break a rule, I'm the guy that gets caught. I'm the guy that gets caught, for sure. I'll be the guy who gets in trouble. So I was like, okay, I guess I better do it. But it didn't, like, there was a click. I was like, that doesn't set well with me. Definitely doesn't answer my question. And I'm not digging this. And here's the thing. First of all, that is emblematic of my personality to this day. They all talk about little kids saying, but why, but why, but why? I'm still that little kid going, but why, but why? Are you sure? Like, I had a coffee mug. I think it's missing. I think the movers stole my coffee mug. I'm very upset about this. Because the movers, when they came here just recently in Germany, I got this coffee mug given to me as a gift at school, the last school I worked at. And one of the treats was there was a coupon inside. You could take it to the school store and they would monogram it for you, just basically put on decals. But they had like letters they could do, and you're like, you can get your name on it. This is tangent, I know, but this is all story time with Uncle Phil, so you get what you get. And I remember there were several other people that went by Mr. B. Ironically, there were 3 Phillips at the school at that time, which I never meet other Phils. And there were 3 of us at the school at that time. And so I was trying to decide what to do. And my daughter, who was going to the high school at that time, both my kids were, but my daughter said to me one day, I was like, I'm having this crisis. I don't know what to put on my mug. I was sitting outside the school store holding the mug. She's like, what are you doing, Dad? And I was like, I don't know what to get on my mug. And she said to me, you should just get the word epistemology, because it's all you ever talk about in class. She was in my class, or had been. She said, you should just get the word epistemology. You know what epistemology is? It's the branch of philosophy that studies the theory of knowledge. How do you know what you know? How do you know what you know? How do you know what you think you know? On what basis? It's that evidence thing. It's how, well, and it's that, well, why do I have to? What's your evidence for me having to bow my head and close my eyes and fold my hands? And I realize this has been my whole life. And because of my particular fishbowl, my little microcosm, being in conservative evangelicalism in the Bible Belt in the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and aughts, the response I typically got was, stop asking questions. If you ask questions, you're going to go apostate. If you ask questions, you're going to get into trouble. If you ask questions, you're going to become a liberal. If you ask questions, you're going to lose your faith. If you ask questions, just do as you're told. Fold your hands, close your eyes, bow your head, boy. Do as you're told. Otherwise, it gets worse. I'm telling y'all, there's a lot there for who Phil Bryan is. A lot. Anyhow, never question. There's parts of you that were developed right at the beginning. I'm curious. Do you have anything where you can look back and go, oh, wow. Yeah, that's been that way the whole time. Yep. That's been that way the whole time. Anyhow, that's my thoughts for today. My thoughts for today are that it's cold outside and I got to get better shoes. Number 2, I had a nice conversation with my daughter about life, the universe, and everything. And we were thinking about identity, your thoughts about yourself and your actions, the intersection of those 3 things. You got any thoughts on that? Anyhow, all right, playlist. Here it is. Because I took you outside and showed you this beautiful, beautiful place, all right, and the snowy landscape and the snow, you can see it still even behind me. Look at the snow on the trees, and it's just, the song is Winter Wonderland, but I want you to listen to the Chet Baker version. Chet Baker, trumpet player, jazz trumpet player. Chet Baker, Winter Wonderland. And don't give me crap about the fact that it's after Christmas and I'm calling up a Christmas song. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Okay? Save your angry comments about that. I don't want to hear it because you know what? I have limited time left on this earth, and I'm not going to tell myself I can't enjoy Christmas music, which is some of the best in the world. I can't enjoy it whenever I want to. And besides, it is still a winter wonderland. I don't even think that song says Christmas in it. It just says Winter Wonderland. So technically, I think it slides in under the wire. Look how defensive you made me. Look at what you did to me. You Christmas lockdown music people. Come on. Have some joy. Anyhow, I kid. Winter Wonderland, Chet Baker. It's so good. My wife pointed out to me the other day because we were listening to it over Christmas. She's like, he has some wrong notes. Like you can hear, and as a former trumpet player myself, yeah, he actually clams a bit. He has some clams in there. He's kind of like, he has like at least two I can remember where he kind of hits a note and he steps on it, you know, he steps on it and it slips underneath him and it kind of honks, not right. But I love that when they make those tracks and they're like, yeah, but like, because they, you know, often in the studio, they record these things 4 or 5 times to see which track they wanted, which take they wanted. They were like, but there was something magical about that take that we'll accept the 2 clams on that deal because it was still great. And it is. Go listen. Chet Baker, Winter Wonderland. So good. So good. Anyhow, that's all for me today. As always, don't forget, man, Jesus loves you, right? No matter what, exactly as you are, he loves you. And as for me, I wish grace, peace, and love to everyone.